Things had got so bad, I really thought I had Alzheimer's. In celebration of World Menopause Day, I'd like to talk a little bit about brain fog in perimenopause or menopause. What is brain fog? Is it the same as Alzheimer's? How do you know if you've got it? And more importantly, what can you do about it? My name is Sam Palmer, and I'm a menopause fitness and lifestyle expert, and I've been working with women in the perimenopause and beyond for the last 9 or so years. And when I first used to speak to people, they would be in their late 40s, definitely early 50s, and menopause was something that was talked about in hushed terms. Jump forwards over the last 2 or 3 years, and now women are seeking information, help and advice from as early as their late 30s. And this is due in part because so many more people are talking about the menopause, what happens when you go through it, and what you can do to prepare yourself. But in the workplace, one of the big challenges that people are often too scared to talk about is brain fog. Most people think that the perimenopause or menopause brings with it hot flushes and night sweats and mood swings, and that's all you've got to navigate your way through. But actually, brain fog, when you actually ask people in the workplace, is one of the things that they say, that's what I'm really struggling with, and that's what I really like your help with. In fact, 60% of women in the workplace will report some kind of cognitive changes. They might say that they've forgotten their line manager's name. They've worked with them for years, but they've forgotten their surname. They can't remember or they can't concentrate on spreadsheets, documents. They find it really difficult to give a presentation in a meeting, to stand up and talk about something that they're involved in. And that confidence starts to wane as a result of all of these things. And it is said that women are leaving the workplace in droves. Actually, I think that's a little bit of a catastrophization. They're not leaving the workplace in droves. But if we don't educate people as to how to get through this, they will. So in this little chat that I'm going to do with you today, I'm going to talk about the difference between perimenopause and menopause, what brain fog is and how it differs from Alzheimer's, what you can do to help yourself, with particular note to what you can eat, because that's always really interesting, isn't it? And how as a line manager or somebody in the workplace, you can support other people. So I hope that you'll find it really interesting. So let's just start with, what is menopause? Excuse me. Menopause is the day that you haven't had a period for 12 months. Periods often splutter towards the end of our perimenopausal years. So you might have one every month, or you might have one every 6 weeks, or you might have one every 8 or 10 weeks, or they might suddenly start becoming much more frequent. And it's at the point where they start making these changes that you know things are slightly different, but you're not actually in the menopause until you haven't had a period for 12 months. So the perimenopause is actually the time where more women notice more symptoms. And believe it or not, that can go on for 7 to 10 years. So it makes sense to arm yourself with information so that as you're going through that 7 to 10 years, you understand what's happening and what you can do about it. So why do we get brain fog? Does everybody have brain fog? No, they don't. It's a symptom that many people struggle with in the workplace, but it doesn't happen all the time. So it may be that you have brain fog, but it's actually only noticeable when you're going through a particularly stressful time. Now, many women in the perimenopause or menopause age are juggling elderly parents or kids going off to university or college, or promotions within the workplace or challenges within the workplace. And so when they aren't dealing with those times, they may not notice that they're struggling to remember things. But when things start to get challenging around them, that's when the brain fog starts to show itself. Why do we get it? There are 2 main hormones that are talked about in perimenopause and menopause: estrogen and progesterone. In fact, there are 3 hormones that we need to be more aware of, but today's not really the time to talk about it. But the hormone that has most of an impact on us getting brain fog is estrogen. So estrogen is produced in your ovaries, And slowly from around our mid to late 30s, our hormone production, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, starts to decline. And it's this decline in estrogen, which is often happening much more to the end of our 40s for this, that starts to highlight itself in various different ways. There are things like itchy skin, hot sweats, night sweats, but this lack of estrogen to your brain demonstrates itself in this confusion, forgetting a word. And I still do it now. I can be talking to you quite happily and suddenly forget the word for what I want to say to you. It's really quite normal. And in fact, once you understand it's normal, it becomes much less of a trauma to deal with. I think what's really important is to know that it passes. So even if you make no changes to your lifestyle, perhaps you don't consider HRT, which is when you put the estrogen back in via another source. If you do absolutely nothing, this decline in estrogen and its effect on your brain is a temporary phase. So once you've gone through and out the other side of menopause, your cognitive function returns in most cases to where it was before. So hold tight. It's not the end of your ever having to remember everything and write everything down and have post-it notes everywhere. It is a phase that you're going through. Now, the big question, as I said at the top of this chat, is how do I know if it's not Alzheimer's? And often people are too scared to seek help because they think that once they've sought help, because they think it might be Alzheimer's, because there's Alzheimer's or dementias in the family, that that's going to go on some kind of a record and everything's going to go downhill from there. How do you know it's not Alzheimer's? Well, have you ever done that thing where you've gone perhaps to a multi-story car park and you've gone in, you've done your shopping and you've had a coffee and you go back to the car park and you think, where did I put my car? Done that? When we are going through brain fog, we have the ability to think, okay, so I walked in through those doors and I saw the baby clothes and then I saw the shoes. So, oh, I know, I must have been going out of that exit. In Alzheimer's, we notice that patients or people don't have the ability to work backwards to try and understand what the problem was. Whereas if it's brain fog, we have the ability to think back to how did I get here? Oh, that's it. Yeah, okay, I know, I remember. That's where my car is, it's over there. So it's not having the ability to work out a situation. Also, Alzheimer's tends to be a fairly slow decline and people stop caring for themselves physically. They don't change their clothes. Perhaps their personal hygiene isn't very good. You may have very inappropriate mood changes where people say things that generally in normal life they wouldn't have said, impolite things to people. Whereas brain fog actually comes on quite rapidly. You suddenly notice that you can't remember the word for a pomegranate when you're writing a shopping list. You ever done that? And you start thinking, oh my gosh, it's all going wrong. And it gets worse if you're not sleeping very well. And as I said earlier, it gets worse if you're quite stressed. So how does it affect us in a workplace? As I said earlier, it may mean that you forget people's names, you're embarrassed to give presentations, you're struggling to concentrate on a detailed piece of work. But there are an awful lot of things that your organization, your company can do to help you. And just by asking me to deliver this workshop today, this company, your company, is being really helpful in giving you the tools to know where you can go and seek help. So there is something called cognitive behavioral therapy, where you can go to a qualified therapist and help you understand and get the tools to deal with this. So cognitive behavioral therapy is really important. In some situations, being allowed to choose when you start and when you finish work, given normal parameters, may be really helpful because your cognitive function may be worse at the end of the day when you're really tired, in which case you might prefer to start work earlier in the day, or it may be that you struggle to get going in the morning and therefore being able to have a different start time in the day may be important. Maybe allowing you, if you're in a situation where you have to wear certain clothes, certain fabrics, if you are in a situation where you're customer facing and there's some kind of uniform, making changes to what you wear. is an option that some workplaces might allow you. But more importantly, just signposting you to menopause experts and professionals like myself who can listen to how you're feeling and give you guidelines as to what you can do, what the next steps are, informed, science-based guidelines to help you on that journey. But what about you? You are working full time, you may be doing hybrid working, so you're partly in the office and you're partly from home. How can you help yourself? Well, often the best piece of advice I can give you is the one that you don't want, and that is exercise and movement. Believe it or not, getting out and moving every day, walking every day, particularly if you can do it before midday, before noon, is a really good way of helping with brain fog. Now, it does that for various reasons. When we get out before lunchtime, you get the maximum amount of light into your eyes. And when we have light into our eyes, it's a real mood enhancer. It really lifts your mood and it helps with your cognitive function. When you get out and move, you're pumping blood up through your legs to your glute muscles, and that pushes more oxygen around your body and up to your brain, which helps improve your concentration. Exercise has been proven to help offset most of our perimenopausal symptoms, even hot flushes and night sweats. How am I going to go and move and get sweaty and that's going to help? It's been proven that it does. But if exercise is the last thing on your mind at the moment because you're struggling with so many other things, then can I get you to embrace the idea of moving more? So a 10-minute walk, a fake commute, walking around the block, walking up and down your garden, walking around the office, trying to find ways of bringing movement into your day with your colleagues. Could I have a chat with you about something? Don't pick up the phone. Can you go and walk and see that person? Now, obviously, if it's an online meeting, you can't, but could you have a walking meeting on the telephone? Consider ways that you can bring more exercise and movement into your week. Prioritizing sleep and rest becomes really important in our perimenopause and menopause years. I mentioned perimenopause lasts 7 to 10 years. I mentioned menopause as being the day you haven't had a period for 12 months. Postmenopause is the rest of your life. And for many women, a third of our life is spent postmenopausally. And many of those women will still be in the workplace, either full or part-time, for a lot of those years. So it makes sense to really get your head around the idea that your sleep and your rest is now vitally important. And being in a working culture that acknowledges that, so being able to set your boundaries. When do you turn on your do not disturb? When is it okay to say, I'll read that email and I'll come back to you in the working day? So really think about that. And rest is different from sleep. So allowing yourself the time at lunchtime in your lunch break to sit outside on a bench and watch the world go by, even for 5 or 10 minutes, concentrating on your breathing, is really important. It's not wrong to take a lunch break. It's really important to give your brain a rest and have a change of scenery. And in fact, you're likely to be more effective when you go back into work. It's a good idea to try and think about ways you can bring back some of those things you used to love, a hobby, into your life. Now, years ago, I don't know, we all did things that brought us joy. It could have been swimming, it could have been singing, it could have been a musical instrument, it could have been sewing, any of those things. But actually, as we get into full-time working life and bringing up a family and looking after the people that we look after and getting involved in our communities, the things that used to bring us joy have often gone out of the window. So if you used to love playing the piano, is there a way that you can bring that back into your week, even for just 20 or 30 minutes? If you loved sewing, making your own clothes, can you do that again? Looking at your week as a whole and trying to find time that is just for you is really important. So try and think about your boundaries and setting those boundaries and bringing back some you time. But what about food? Food is, for many women, well, actually for me, a big joy in my life. And understanding that food can be almost a medicine to help us stay healthy and vibrant and active in this time of menopause and beyond is really important. So I'm going to start by giving you some of the foods that are known to help with mood and cognitive function and to alleviate brain fog. The first one, hang on, is chocolate. Now, admittedly, it's not the whole galaxy type of chocolate that's full of sugar and very low in cocoa solids. Yes, it's 70% cocoa solids chocolate. But a hot chocolate made with cocoa and perhaps almond milk or dairy milk, it doesn't matter. Oh, what a lovely thing to treat yourself to once you've been out for that walk first thing in the morning. There is a female scientist who has done some research into cognitive function for women in perimenopause. And she says that the most effective antioxidant drink that we can have on our brains is 1 espresso coffee every day. Julia Mosconi, her name is. And so she says, if you like coffee, make it 1 proper espresso a day. It's a brilliant antioxidant drink. So don't deny yourself that caffeine, but try to limit the amount that you have, because it will have an effect on your sleeping, particularly if it's after 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But 1 espresso a day. Oily fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel, all of those things, they're actually great for midday lunches for women in the workplace. A tin of sardines on some toast with some seeds sprinkled on top. It's a great quick lunch. Okay, it's a bit whiffy in the workplace, but think about ways to bring some oily fish into your diet. Avocado, fantastic. That avocado on toast that you treat yourself to for brunch at the weekend, a really good addition to your diet. As is spinach and broccoli. Broccoli is known to be really helpful for women in the menopause. And spinach, ideally steamed. You can have it raw. It can be a little bit dodgy on our tummies if we have it raw in smoothies. So if you're putting something green into a smoothie, you might consider kale rather than spinach. But if it's lightly steamed, it's really beneficial. And then all the berries, blueberries, raspberries, red currant berries, all the berries, cranberries, are really good for us to have. So maybe you would have them with some yogurt in the morning. And as I mentioned earlier, sprinkle some seeds on top. Those things are really good ways of looking at your food to help you with these cognitive changes. So just to reassure you again at the end, 60% of women say that they feel like this. And if they had been given information like I've given you here today, they would be able to put some practices into place immediately to help them make some changes, and they will notice that it does improve. I'm glad that you've been taken the time to watch this. I hope you've jotted down some notes, and I hope that from tomorrow you'll be thinking, how can I get out and move a little bit more? How can I bring a little bit more of that stuff into my life? And who can I talk to within my workplace to either reassure them or get more reassurance? Thanks very much for watching, and I hope this has been helpful. Bye-bye.